You can be a long-term bull on something and love the fundamentals of Bitcoin, and that's what I am. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't make money when the chart is telling you it's going to fall in the next day or two. I mean, why not, right? I mean, charts are there for you to trade if you know how to trade them and make money for you and your family. Right now, it's a no touch in terms of a trade. I'm going to look to sell here. And then what I would suggest doing with this resistance right in here is if you're looking for an intraday trade, and let's say it hits there in an hour, hour and a half, as a trader, whether you're bullish or bearish, you always want to listen to other points of view, because that can give you insight into yourself and kind of shape your outcome. So I think that's awesome. For me, I'm more in the camp that we're still potentially in that complacency period. On that chart you showed, there was this kind of sideways, slightly up move, and it looks very similar to what, like, if, yeah, right there. See how you traded after that euphoria drop? That makes me wonder. I mean, that's kind of like almost identical to what we're forming right now, which is kind of scary if we still have a lot more downside to go. But the question I would say is have we seen, maybe we've seen a little anxiety, but we certainly haven't seen the all out panic and the denial portion as well. So that would be my only one concern about it, is that to me, the daily chart looks like a bear flag formation since January. And then you still haven't seen that washout. We haven't seen the altcoins, like, some of them go under, some of them go out of business, or a large chunk of them. And to me, that's kind of needed. You need to flush the system, right? So for me, that, I still think there's more downside just based on charts. Now, that's not to say that at some point we couldn't see a negation of that. And so right now, this is what I have on the charts. And again, this is that move from the top here. You had that initial sell-off, and then this is all kind of that digestion, that consolidation, and it's holding this perfectly parallel channel right here. And we are getting a little bit of an uptick, but it's coming right off this support right here. My big fear is that if in TA, in technical analysis, that this historically is a bearish pattern, probabilities generally lead to further downside. Now, there is a chance it gets negated, and I've said this, a few times, is that if for some reason we can start trading up outside of this range, then that would actually change my view. Then I would start to say, okay, the bearish pattern has now failed. But until then, I have to go with what at least the near-term chart is showing. Now, you guys know, long-term, I love Bitcoin. I love cryptocurrency. I have a 500,000, maybe $1 million target on it over the next 5-10 years. It's just this period that we're in where you have the Fed tightening, which we've never had for Bitcoin, right? We've never had significant Federal Reserve tightening, pulling liquidity out of the markets since 2009, when Bitcoin was created. That was the end of the financial crisis, where the Fed introduced quantitative easing. So we have that scenario. And then you also have this high inflation situation where since Bitcoin's been around, we've never had high inflation. So the Fed has always had the green light to print. And so I do wonder if this scenario here, where we see further downside, could be potentially reality because of these new factors that are getting introduced. So basically, in technical analysis, pattern formation dictates probability. So when you have a pattern that is forming, as long as it remains forming in the proper manner, then probabilities are heavily favored in that direction. So this is more of a bearish pattern, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you actually have been making higher lows and higher highs, right? So again, a lot of people would look at this and say, oh, isn't this bullish because you're making higher highs and higher lows? In reality, that's actually what bear flags do. And it's almost like convincing the public that it's going to go up when it's actually going to go the opposite way. And what's interesting about this is what we can see is if you go back to last, what was it, May and June, we had kind of the opposite pattern. And this is a great example why that is the difference, right? So if we look at this and we draw a parallel down, you basically had this down sloping channel where you were making lower lows and lower highs. And then this is the one that broke out. So in general, this is more of a bullish pattern. It's counterintuitive, and you can see what happened. This one is the opposite of that, and that leads me to believe there. Now, in terms of negating it, once the pattern is broken, that's very psychologically significant to investors. All right. So for instance, if this pattern here starts trading up in this range, then psychologically it's like, okay, well, the bearish case is now off the table, at least this one. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to go up, but the probabilities start to sway more towards the upside versus where they currently are. You're right. You're right that it has been sideways chop. It's actually been, in terms of hitting levels and pulling back, it's been a great kind of trader's market. So if you're someone who buys support, shorts resistance, buys support, and then, you can really, it's kind of cool in that respect. But if you're someone who's like buying and holding, it certainly is bearish. Now my routine is basically, I try to get a good night's sleep with kids. For those of you that have kids, that doesn't always happen. But the good night's sleep clears the mind. You want to start with, kind of getting up in that positive attitude. I always talk about how when you wake up, you kind of want to think about the day. You want to think positively about trading, about following rules. So it's not just about, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money today, but it's going to be like, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to follow the charts. I'm not going to get emotional over trades. These are common things that people run into, and it's very important to kind of start on the right note and start getting into that mode. And then what I do, honestly, I open up my phone usually when I'm half asleep still, and I'll look at, I have all my charts and my stocks, and I look at what's moving, right? And I see where's Bitcoin trading, where's Solana, Ethereum. I see where stocks are trading. Recently, it's been like Netflix got crushed. And I start to think about, okay, are these nearing key support lines? What's moving today? You want to trade things with volatility. If it's not moving significantly, you're going to get caught in it, and you're going to be flushed, and the bots, the algorithms are going to kind of push you around and try to get you to exit for a loss. So you want to find stocks that are moving during earnings season. For instance, great time right now for earnings stocks to be flushing. We saw again Netflix, Tesla's up a huge today. And Bitcoin's getting a little bit of a pop, although not enough to trade. But really looking for volatility, I would say, is big. I get behind the computer at least an hour and a half before the trading day starts, and I start looking at charts and kind of just making a game plan for the day. But I think, again, having a kind of a routine for successful trading is very, very important. Just like for any career, it's very important to have that routine and that discipline. I think the key is that it's not that, so it's important to understand that you should never have a narrative that is like one-sided. And so for instance, believe it or not, right now I'm actually long Bitcoin. I bought it right at that same trend line, right? I don't know if you guys can flip up the chart, but basically I was short at the highs here with members, and then we bought it right down here. So in the short term, I'm just playing support and resistance and letting the chart tell me what to do. I always think it's so important for investors to understand, it doesn't matter whether you trade crypto, commodities, stocks, or Forex. It's that the charts should dictate what you do. You should never have the bias where I'm going to force my will on whatever I'm trading, because you'll inevitably lose, right? As a trader. Now, longer term, you're longer term, you're viewing this as a longer term view. And I think that's perfect. I do agree with that. But in the shorter term, you can't go into a trading day and say, hey, I'm going to make money 100% on Apple today or on Bitcoin. You have to let the charts tell you what the trade is going to be, whether it's long or short. So I think that's important, to go in and let the charts tell you. And then that way you can kind of just say, hey, listen, whatever my personal emotional attachment is, it doesn't matter. It's what is the chart telling me at this particular time, and I'll go in that direction. So yeah, you never want to have like a firm narrative as a trader. You want to let the charts dictate what you do. I think, and this goes with like on-chain analysis. People always saying that on-chain analysis says this, and that's basically the fundamentals of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in the long term, fundamentals mean a lot. In the short term, what rules the market is greed and fear, right? So you have to, as a trader, keep yourself out of being emotional while recognizing that the way you make money is by looking at the charts, which represents everyone else's emotion. All right. So if you can be that individual who steps back from it and says, hey, all I'm here to do is make money. I'll go long, I'll go short, I'll go left, I'll go right. And then you understand that what you're looking at is that you can actually do that very, very well. So I think that's really important. You can be a long-term bull on something and love the fundamentals of Bitcoin. And that's what I am. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't make money when the chart is telling you it's going to fall in the next day or two. Why not, right? Charts are there for you to trade if you know how to trade them and make money for you and your family. So again, don't be afraid. Just because you're going short for the next 2 days doesn't mean you're disrespecting Bitcoin or hurting the narrative or anything like that. It's okay. And that's the way I am. I mean, there'll be certain levels and certain points where I totally accumulate a long-term hodling position and I'll let it run, but I'll always be a trader and I'll always be in and be out because the charts enable us to do that.
So my question to you, Gareth, if you allow me, if you have to trade Bitcoin intraday, would you short today or would you go for long? At the market is opening now, I mean, there should be some volatility.
All right, let's go back to here and let's see. So I'll give you guys the level. So I already have it isolated where I'm going to take profits on the long that I bought right over here. And that is, there's a level coming up right here at 43,000. All right, so basically right now it's a no touch in terms of a trade. I'm going to look to sell here. And then what I would suggest doing with this resistance right in here is if you're looking for an intraday trade, and let's say it hits there in an hour, hour and a half, I mean, only about $300 away right now, that would be where you would look to short it, as you would expect a pullback there, just for an intraday trade, all right? And again, just to understand, but that's kind of what I would look to do as a trader, is that this is your key level. You can see this big candle here, the pause candle, and then even right here, notice how it tried to get above that level and failed and then fell off. So what that's telling you is there's a lot of resistance right there at 43 or 43.1, somewhere in that vicinity. So again, if you're looking for a trade today and it pops into that level, you'd look for a pullback there, just a, I don't know, $500 pullback. It's hard to know how much you'd get on an intraday basis.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I like about Bitcoin too is that in general, you want to trade cryptos that have enough volume where you can easily get in and out. And that's, like even the last coin that we were looking at for Lee there is that, as a trader, I'd have to even look at it closer because I don't know if I'd feel comfortable trading it versus you're kind of buying and holding and accumulating, which is on a smaller coin is kind of what you want to do, versus with Bitcoin or Ethereum, you can be more of a trader.